Hello, my name is TJ Lee. I am the writer for the Sturgeon Universe for Dusklight Radio, its humble janitor, and I'm here to explain to you in under 60 seconds what we're doing here. If you've come over because of the algorithm, welcome. Normally we have these radio-style introductions by our undead host, Everett Blackwell. Those are still going to be here. However, for the next 30 days, outside of a couple of special uploads, we're going to be doing a 30 and 30 challenge to see if the algorithm responds well to daily content posting, and the aim is to show high-quality, horror-based content that you're already used to, but doing that on a daily basis. We've got a schedule all through the next 4 weeks. Vidith is also going to be doing this, and we're really excited to see how well this responds on the metrics. If you like this and you support it, all I ask is that you engage with the content, drop a like, comment, let me know your thoughts, and maybe check out the Patreon if you want to support us. It's as little as $1 a month, and we've got a Discord with a community there. Thank you so much for choosing Dusklight Radio, and I really hope you enjoyed the content. Oh, and stick around at the end because that is where we'll have our typical outros with Patreon shoutouts. Thanks.
I could tell James didn't want to let me go, but his mother was insistent. I should have known something was wrong during our car ride, as he was showing me much more affection than usual, hugging me tight, scratching my favorite spot behind my right ear, capturing pictures of us together in the backseat of the car, and constantly confessing his love for me from behind tears and a frown. He rubbed his face against me, bringing sneezes and dry, scratchy eyes. We arrived at a brick house, and I could hear plentiful barks within, but I was able to recognize them as ones of fear and confusion. He grabbed hold of my leash and led me to the building where another human met us outside. After a quick conversation, James's mother asked him to hand her the leash. He knelt down beside me and held me tight, tears in his eyes, before turning me over and walking back to the car. As the human led me into the building, I kept looking back, wondering what was happening, why I was here. It took me days to realize that they weren't coming back for me.
I remained in a cage for a week before myself and 2 others were led into the back of a van. Our destination was unknown to us. I usually enjoyed car rides, but the cages that held us were cramped and cold. For a while, the van bumped down the road when the drive was cut short by a thunderous boom. I yelped when the blast threw us off the road, my mind in disarray as I was tossed against the steel. Me and my entrapped brothers began barking in confusion, throwing our paws against the doors of the cages that held us prisoner. There were 3 of us. Kaiser, an overly friendly German shepherd who got loose on the south side of town. Chester, a Doberman who enjoyed attacking humans and chipped a tooth trying to tear away at the bars that held him hostage. And myself, a mixed breed mutt named Milo. I was never fond of the name, but I was fond of James, the one who gave it to me, even if I hadn't seen him in quite some time. We must have made enough noise to earn our freedom, as the human who was driving the van pulled open the rear doors and climbed inside, gasping for breath. His skin was burnt and blistering, and the heat that swept into the back of the vehicle was overwhelming and harsh, as if the world outside were an oven. He fumbled with his keys and began unlocking our cages.
"It ain't fair to leave y'all like this,"
he said. I looked on as he released Kaiser, who was quick to bolt out of the back and take off down the road, woofing and howling as he regained his freedom once more. The human was hesitant when he came to Chester's cage, and the Doberman didn't help his case, snarling and foaming at the mouth as he got close with the key. I didn't blame him for skipping over him and going to me instead, unlocking and pulling open the door before pointing to the outside.
"Go! Get out of here!"
he shouted. I was untrusting of the gesture after spending the past week behind bars, and I thought this would lead to an act of human cruelty which I've heard so much about. As I inched forward, I began to see blood begin to pool behind the human's jeans on his upper thigh. He clutched it as he groaned in pain before looking back to me.
"Please, go!"
I ran out of the back, nearly stumbling over my legs when I hit the ground. The van had gone into a ditch along with several other vehicles that were traveling down the same road, but it didn't look like the other drivers were lucky enough to survive. Several of the cars crashed into trees or each other. In the distance was a tremendous, billowing cloud that stretched high into the sky. It was at that moment I truly felt the change in temperature, feeling scalding heat that had quickly wiped away the snow of January. I took one last look at the van, seeing the human lean against Chester's cage, shushing him and removing a bag of treats from a compartment as the Doberman continued to bark and thrash. I knew little of where I was. All I knew was that I wanted to find James and be sure he was okay.
James's mother never wanted me to sleep in his bed with him. She would tell him it wasn't good for his lungs, that something about my fur caused a reaction within him. Regardless, sometimes in the dark of night, he would sneak into the kitchen where I would sleep in my kennel and lead me back to his bedroom where he would hold me tight, despite the sneezing and wheezing it caused. I was grateful for the love he showed me, especially knowing the discomfort my presence caused him. I did my best to make up for it. That night, as I was curled up within the hollow of a tree, the thought of being next to him in bed, falling asleep as he scratched my ears, brought me warmth and comfort.
It had been a day since I was freed from the van, and the world was not what it once was. Back in the town, the windows of buildings were shattered, doors were ripped from their hinges, and those who were previously walking the streets were now shadows in black upon the walls and sidewalks. Flakes of ash clouded the sun and fluttered down upon the land, cloaking it in a sea of gray. The heat left me panting, and the air I breathed in was choking my lungs. It took me time to find a drink. A small puddle formed from a dribbling exposed pipe that hung out from a collapsed wall in between two buildings. I was quick to get my fill, but noticed strands of my white and brown fur dropping down into the water. I scratched at my neck with my back leg, and more hair fell from my body, exposing skin with bubbling sores. After licking at the openings that were forming all over, I turned away from the puddle, afraid to see my own reflection. As darkness consumed the town, I was lucky to finally find a sign of life, a hairless cat with striking blue eyes. While looking for a place to sleep, she startled me by leaping out of a trash can and darting into an alley. My instincts urged me to give chase, and with what little strength I could muster, I followed her, finding her with her back arched, hissing as she stood between me and a torn open bag spilling out food scraps that smelled heavenly. I gave her space and she took pity, allowing me to feast with her on half-eaten hamburgers and stale French fries. Nothing was said between us at first. Our separate species have gone millennia with poor communication. I wanted to ask her if she knew what happened, but I could sense that she knew just as little as I did. When we were satisfied with our meal, she led me further down the alley to an open cellar door. In the dark, I saw her litter. 8 hungry mouths crying out for nourishment, which she was quick to provide by lying on her side and letting them cover her belly. They ignored me, too focused on their feeding, as I lied down on the floor next to them and closed my eyes, their tiny meows singing me to sleep. Her name was Cleopatra. I stayed with her and her young for a few days, helping her find food in the surrounding city blocks, sure to never lead her too far from her litter. In time, we began to understand each other despite the differences that would have kept us apart in the world before. She was used to life without humans, surviving on their refuse for months before they disappeared, and although I was good at sniffing out meals for us, she let me know what was safe to eat and what was not. To me, it was all the same, but to her it mattered, teaching me what to avoid if I wanted to keep well and strong. Despite what I ate, I still felt weak. There was pain in every step I took, and my fur was now falling out in clumps, leaving me looking like a monstrous beast. Cleopatra had always been without fur, but when I saw a reflection of myself in shattered glass on the sidewalk, I could hardly recognize what I was seeing. My fur, where it remained, was matted and blemished with soot and blood. The gums within my mouth bled and stained my teeth. Darkness branched out around the whites of my eyes. When I returned to James, would he know it was me?
James's father didn't want me. He was against it when his mother brought me home as a surprise, saying that they didn't have enough money or time to support me. They argued all through the night while James and I played in the backyard until his mother called us in for bed. Back then, I was allowed to sleep in his room because they had yet to know of his sensitivity to my fur, or whatever it was in me that made his body react the way it did. James blamed it on the pollen all through the spring and summer, but when winter came, his mother realized it had always been me. That was when the kennel was introduced, and I was robbed of the comfort of him and his bed at night. As Cleopatra and her kittens slept soundly, and I lied on the cold floor, I missed the kennel, for it would be James who would open the door to it every morning.
6 days had now passed since the blast and its accompanying cloud rained ash upon the world. Cleopatra and her litter made me feel at home within the cellar, and I appreciated the company, but I needed to keep moving. Once more, I was entirely alone, apart from the flies. Swarms of the insects consumed every block, gnawing away slowly at the burnt flesh of those who weren't entirely disintegrated. Many of them formed around me, picking at my wounds, not knowing or caring that I still lived. My tail was able to whip them away from my rear, and my paws scratched at the ones that nipped at my shoulders, head, and neck. I snapped my jaws at them and growled in frustration, but they were unfazed by my defenses. I walked for hours until I picked up a scent that led me to the park in the center of town, a place where a recalling of joy and placidity washed over me. The bushes and trees were skeletal and burnt, but the remnants of my markings remained, finally allowing me to bask in familiarity. I tried to recollect the most recent memory I had of the place, the ice cream shop across the street where James gave me my own scoop in a bowl, the children who laughed cheerfully as they climbed about the playground, the other dogs brought in from all around who played and frolicked while chasing sticks and tennis balls, and the ride in the car that took us there and back. More familiar aromas filled my nostrils as I began running across the lifeless grass and towards the direction we had always driven from. I was getting closer. As I reached the other end of the park, I heard an ear-shattering crack, and the pavement just below my paws erupted into debris. I turned to see a man stepping into the street, coated in black with sunken eyes that had a bad hunger to them. He had a gun in his hands which ejected a shell to the ground before he took aim for another shot, firing once more and striking the tree a few feet to my right. Everything in my mind told me to run, and so I did, my feet kicking up dirt and ash as I broke into a full sprint down the road. Kaiser and Chester had told tales of dangerous humans who would corner you and throw a hoop around your neck, and others that would throw rocks at you for pure devilish amusement, but this wasn't as simple as haphazard cruelty. This was predator and prey. For the first time in my short life, I felt true fear. The transformation the new world had given me was a minor setback compared to being hunted by a human, Earth's apex predator. I didn't look back as my springing legs hurtled me forward, dashing side to side as more shots pierced my surroundings. Up ahead was a traffic jam frozen in time, consuming an entire intersection with rubble spilling down onto the sidewalks from collapsed structures. With a leap, I made it atop one of the cars, only to slide across the roof and fumble with catching myself and rolling to the ground. There was little space between the vehicles, but enough to provide me cover if I kept low. His heavy footsteps could be heard pounding against the pavement in pursuit, along with the metallic clanking of his rifle, and it was time to make a decision about my next move. I had the speed, but not the stamina to continue evading the human, and no proper places to hide long-term made themselves visible. His footsteps were getting closer, and so I crawled between a couple of the cars and waited. In my short time with Chester in the back of the van, I learned many lessons that I had hoped I would never have to utilize. He was a braggart, proud of the assaults he had carried out on humans, always claiming they got what they deserved and should have just left him alone. His ferocity knew no bounds, and neither could mine. The treading of the human's boots on one of the cars could be heard no more than 10 feet away before he slid down in between the vehicles, crouching low and keeping quiet as if I weren't aware of his presence. Heavy, wheezed breathing emanated from him as his cautious steps carried him through the aisle of scorched metal and melted rubber. I carefully inched closer to the edge of the car when I saw the boots no more than 2 feet away. Hiding was working so far, but humans are stubborn. and I knew it wouldn't be enough. After he passed, I attacked, lunging out from behind the metal and clamping my jaw around his ankle with all of my might. He thrashed and shouted, aiming his rifle down and firing off a shot, but missed. Just as Chester told me, I worked my way up his body, leaping and tearing away at his inner thigh, then going between his legs. He squealed and screamed, dropping the weapon before pounding on me with his fists. He fell to the pavement and reached for the gun when I leapt forward and tore at his wrist, his bone cracking beneath the force of my jaws as his hand went limp. With his other hand, he continued to strike me, but wasn't strong enough to keep me from his throat, which my teeth effortlessly shredded through. This was how our ancestors protected themselves, Chester always told us. This was how we made it as far as we have. This is how we will continue. There was no shame in self-defense. I tried to remind myself of his teachings as I continued to rip at his flesh as his body went still.
The taste of the human's flesh brought the memory of a warm summer day. It was James's birthday, and many of his friends came over and played with me in the backyard. They would run and slide down a strip of yellow plastic covered in water and laugh as I jumped over and onto them. His father was manning the grill when he dropped a hot dog onto the ground. Before he could pick it up, I had bolted in and snatched it up from his reach and ran around the yard with it before chomping down. He shouted while James, his friends, and his mother laughed, looking on as I ate in just a few bites. The taste was so similar to the human I had taken down, it made it difficult to resist what my instincts told me was a feast before me. The hunger within me made it hard to sleep that night.
After a night of little rest, I picked up right where I had left off and continued to the edge of town. In little time, I was immersed in the remains of the vast forest that divided up the bits of human civilization, bare trees and shrubbery shuddering from the wind. This was the road we always took when on a family outing, but as we went through it so quickly in a car, I never had time to truly appreciate what used to be the expanse of nature before me. Curiosity and a variety of new and familiar scents nearly led me from my path and into the woods, but my goal of reaching home kept me moving forward across the pavement. Even with all the plants and trees deceased, the air was more friendly to my lungs, and my wheezes waned the further I continued. The gray that had coated over the town and highway slowly gave way to the browns of the previous autumn's fallen leaves, a welcome change in scenery. Suddenly, to my right, I heard the crunching and snapping of twigs in the woods that bordered the road. What remained of my fur stood on end as I bared my teeth and growled, ready to take on anything that may emerge. But I lowered my guard when several deer stepped from the woods. A buck, a doe, and 2 fawns. Like me, their fur was patchy, and the exposed skin was covered in sores. The fawns stepped behind their antlered parent, who looked as if he was ready to charge in defense of his young, but I ceased my aggressive behavior, the only growling remaining being within my stomach. They looked delicious, but yesterday's fight with the human was enough conflict for a lifetime. I lied down to exhibit submission, allowing them to walk across the road and once more disappear behind the trees. I had arrived several hours later in the neighborhood under the light of the moon and a dark sky painted with stars. The woods slowly faded away into picket-fenced lawns and identical suburban housing that took up miles of space. What I picked up with my nose brought intense stimulation to my brain. I was nearly home. I walked down the road, finding the houses to be in hardly better condition than the town I had crossed through. Windows were shattered, doors were wide open, and no life could be found, whether it be human or animal. My pace quickened as I rounded block after block, following the familiar aromas that grew more intense when I began to salivate from the smell of fresh meat, and a moment later was stopped in my tracks by a familiar face. It was Kaiser, up ahead in the center of the street, ripping away at what looked to be the corpse of a human. I at first couldn't believe what I was seeing, but despite the loss of fur and his blistered skin, his scent reigned supreme, identifying him as my kin. He was always the friendliest towards our human caretakers, despite being captured by them, picked up off the street, and returned home repeatedly due to his lust for freedom and hatred of containment. I approached slowly, when his ears perked up and he glared upon me, letting free a guttural growl that formed into snapping barks. His aggression was powered by confusion, believing I was there to steal his meal from him, so I made sure to keep my distance as I walked around him. He didn't take his eyes off me, not even blinking, and within them I saw nothing more than a feral who had lost his way. Despite this judgment, I drooled upon looking at the body. Was this what we were destined to become? Like all the other homes, the door was wide open when I had finally arrived. I was hesitant to walk in, afraid of the possible rejection that I would meet. My once soft, lustrous coat was now sparse, and the exposed skin was scaly and blistered. My mouth was still stained with the blood of the human who thought he could gun me down. My previous kind and gentle eyes were now dark and inflamed. After a few moments, I stepped within. In the living room, James's toys were still strewn about, with whatever he was creating with his Legos trampled upon and shattered. The smell of mold was overwhelming in the dining room, where plates of food sat upon the table half-eaten. Water dripped from the faucet in the kitchen, the only sound breaking the silence. In James's parents' bedroom, 2 suitcases were on the floor with articles of clothing that were hastily thrown in just to be left behind. The final room was James's. The door cracked just a hair. I nudged it open with my nose and stepped in, finding it an absolute mess of toys and clothing. He was long gone, and I was far too tired, too hungry, and in too much pain to continue searching for him. I used what little strength I had to leap onto his bed and make a nest for myself in his blankets, before closing my eyes and taking a deep breath, seizing his comforting scent. Sniffing the sheets, blankets, and pillows filled me with peace as I recounted my short life and how wonderful it had been to be with him. From when I was first brought home to just before the car ride to the brick house, I lived a life of love and joy and experienced everything a dog should. I was taken care of. I was shown appreciation for the smallest acts, such as fetching a stick or picking up my water bowl when it was empty and trotting around the house with it, making them laugh and smile by doing so little, just by being myself. And I did my best to be good for them. Now they were gone, and I was tired and hungry, and that nearly irresistible scent on the wind guided me back out of the house and into the streets. Kaiser was gone, but the corpse remained. I sunk my teeth into the flesh and had my fill, eating for the first time in days. This is how we made it as far as we have, Chester told us. This is how we will continue.
Most heartfelt greetings and salutations, ladies and gentlethems. I eagerly welcome you to Sturgeon's most premier station, Dusk Light Radio, hosted by yours truly, the effervescent, ethereal, and immersive Everett J. Blackwell. This heart-wrenching tale of a dog's perspective in a nuclear winter was written by a good friend of the channel, J.C. Rodriguez, and it is dedicated to Demon. We love you and miss you, Demon. You were the goodest boy. Please let Rodriguez know what you thought of his story in the comments, and you can be sure you'll hear more of his works in the new year. His latest novel, Bury Me in Filcar, along with his other works, have been linked in the description below. Please go and show him some of your support. Now, normally I'd go into my usual Blackwell spiel here, however, we're at the end of the video. If you've stuck around long enough, this is a sample of what our usual introductions to Dusklight transmissions are like. A link to one of our normal lengthy transmission videos is below. However, for the next 30 days, as of December 15th, you will not be getting those introductions unless it is a special Sturgeon video, such as the next chapter in our ongoing series coming out before the new year. You see, we want to test out the algorithm to see how well YouTube responds to a regular series of posts. So we decided between myself and the wonderful Vidith to do a 30 in 30 challenge. 30 days, 30 videos, no days off, except for Christmas, which will make up on the schedule. At the end of that time, we'll look at our metrics, see how well it's responded, if any new listeners have come to the station, and we can then make an informed decision about how we want to progress. I can tell you right now, however, that as of Season 6, in 2026 for Dusklight Radio, we will be going to 3 videos a week, an SCP video on Mondays, and normal, no sleep or creepypasta story on Wednesdays, and on Fridays we'll be doing something special. Every single month we'll be doing a compilation of our best stories from the month, and you'll also get a special feature-length Sturgeon or feature-length creepypasta story with immersive sound design, SFX, and voice acting. Very few things are going to be changing except the quality of our production. With that, I bring you to our outros, which are very important because this is the time where we thank all of our patrons for making this possible. If you want to sign up, it's as little as $1 a month and you get exclusive content, early access videos and stories, updates, and more. You can even suggest videos and stories for me to cover on the channel. But times are tough and we will always be grateful for your support no matter what form it comes in. Financial, spiritual, corporeal, maniacal, whatever you want. Either way, it really helps us out. And consider joining the Discord. We have a wonderful community at the listening station and we'd love to have you there. Dusklight gives thanks to, first, our Purple Crayon Eaters, Echo Kane, Gail Allstott, Alex, Mike, Candyman Gloving, Ashabel, Amara, Phi, Max, and Feeny Von Kama. Our janitors, Allie, Shane Lewis, Dux, Joy Flint Healy, Sabine Eclipse, Death 31, Scott, Heather Cayley, Adrian R., Amy, Arkham Cookie, and Alex Nunez. Our nightmare detectives, Deliria, Melanie Schaefer, and Fox Clifford. Our void walkers, Josh Woods and Professor Creepypasta. And of course, our Blackwell family. Great Uncle Ven Blackwell, who really seems to be hanging around the furnishings lately. I could swear that I've seen him trying to reanimate something from in the wallpaper. He keeps stroking it softly and saying, "Hush, little one, soon you could be free." Ethan Blackwell, the master of repo and infuriating the outer gods alongside his BFF, Jimmy. Jackal Blackwell, the scourge of gas station sushi outlets. Clue Blackwell, the twisting, shambling horror. Tabitha Blackwell, wearing a muscle tee with Kyo's face as a skull she smashed, declaring herself the Spine Queen. And of course, Papa Kyo Blackwell, preparing his greatest weapon, the Spine Lord, and his many, many legions of bone fragments. We love and fear you, Papa, and we thank you humbly for your patronage and look to see you bright and early for Dusklight orientation. Purple crayons and existential dread will be provided. And one last time, listeners, close your eyes and breathe with me. Remember, no matter how bad things are, how cruel people can be, and how heavy your shoulders may feel with the weight of the world bearing down on them, Dusklight will always be here to lift the load and provide you with some respite. drink some hot cocoa with chocolate sprinkles and fat marshmallows, have some s'mores, watch a video about liminal spaces, and sleep on the cool side of the pillow with the window open and the stars twinkling down on you. Start and end each day with kindness in your heart. You matter, you are loved, and every day is another chance. I'll see you again when the sun sets and dusk enters the station.